livestreamlife.com. I'm your founder and editor Vishal Krishna. I'm with the founders of Numocity, Mr. Ravi and Mr. Siddharth. Numocity is a SaaS model that helps charge point operators manage their business. I'm also with Naganand Doreswamy of Ideaspring Capital, and he supported them first. Enjoy this podcast and how they got strategically acquired, and tell me what you think about it. Ravi, Siddharth, Naga, how are you?
Awesome.
Why have you gathered here today? It's an interesting time. No, everybody should love it. I think Numocity are the stars today. They've just had a strategic acquisition from ABB. I think it's very important for Ideaspring to set the details in context. When did this happen, Naga?
We invested in Numocity early 2020, and we have been talking to Ravi and Siddharth much before that, and we have had a fabulous relationship even prior to investing, and that really continued post investing as well. And one of the key reasons why we got excited about Numocity is obviously the founders, the depth of the knowledge and their passion to do a company and to take what was emerging in the EV and build something new and bring something new to the market. And we got very excited, and we were able to put a bunch of investors together. Ideaspring obviously led the round, and we were joined by Ravikiran and ABB as partners. It's been a fabulous journey over the past 2.5 years, and thankfully, we have had a fabulous exit, which has been great for the investors as well as the founders. And I think most importantly, they have found a great home in ABB and will take the company forward. And it's time for celebration.
Now it's history.
Yes.
Now it's history.
It's never. It's like it's always going to be dear to our hearts. But yes, from Ideaspring perspective, we're very happy to have gotten the exit of the board, but we'll continue to stay in close touch with the founders because they still have their journey ahead of us, and we'd love to see them get the best out of this whole process, and most importantly, bring a great product to the market and continue building the market leadership.
So, for those of them wondering what Numocity is all about, Ravi, Siddharth, firstly, congratulations.
Thank you.
Super congratulations. Because for a B2B company to get strategically acquired, not many examples now in India. This is fascinating that India can build global products.
Absolutely.
Tell us about what Numocity is. I know it's into SaaS, helping charging point companies manage, their business better.
Right.
I'll leave it to you. Let's start off. Siddharth, who wants answers? What is Numocity? And what does Numocity mean?
Yeah, so maybe I'll start and then let's
Please
add on to it. So, as you know, in electric vehicle industry, there are many different players. We always look at multiple players in it: automotive companies, power utility companies, networking companies, and then we forget the software and the data companies, the companies which look at multiple things to connect all of these together. That's where Numocity comes in, where we are a digital platform helping charging infrastructure or energy infrastructure to manage better, monetize better, and also to operate it better. I think that's what we, at a broad level, we get into.
It sounds simple, but it's not. We're going to get into that.
Yeah.
Right? So what does Numocity mean?
Numocity came with the name saying new user experiences, mobility and electricity. We were looking at convergence of all these things. There are new user experiences coming in mobility and bringing in electricity. That's where the name Numocity came.
Talk about the early experience. Both of you were together in Nokia.
Yeah.
Is that how you met? Talk about how you met and why bring this problem in and say, why solve this thing? Why solve for charging infrastructure, which is still picking up at this point. It's going to be very big in 10 years, but you're one of the early entrants into this game. Talk about your early days.
Sure. So I think the time I met Ravi was at the start of my career. So I started my career back in the day with Siemens, and mobile technology was hot, and Siemens was one of the players there. So we had a first-hand experience of seeing how the mobile industry grew in India. So we saw explosive growth. So from breaking the shackles of being behind a desk phone, which took a lot of license and a lot of waiting period to get the phone, and then all the hassles. We broke free. So today it's a convenience, it's more an essential thing. So we saw how rapidly India as a market can consume new technology. So somewhere around 2017, of course, so me and Ravi have been in touch. So of course we did go our own path. Ravi started his own entrepreneurial journey, I think more than a decade back. I started about 7 years back. So in 2017, when we were just bouncing few ideas around, we said this looks like an emerging space. We could see few parallels saying that, okay, this stage, what we are talking about 2018-19, e-mobility is more of a fancy thing. Maybe it's not for the masses, it's for somebody else. But we knew for the industry to really make a change, it had to be something for the masses. And for something to really get deployed at large scale, you need systemic thinking. And that is something which we had seen, from our past experiences. Building systems and products which can scale enables the market to adopt it, much faster and better. So we said, hey, this is an opportunity to, apply maybe some past learnings and take some new ideas what we have seen. And let's see how, as this market grows, do we have a chance to build something meaningful? And that's where we started. And of course, one of the first few people whom we started speaking early in terms of building a company and then getting the support. As capital is the fuel which fuels an idea to a business. So that conversation started, and Naganand was one of the early
supporters.
And
okay. I want to draw an analogy. Telecom networks were built like this, and the same thing is going to happen in the EV space. So there's going to be many things, like telecom networks. There'll be telecom towers, right? There'll be interoperability issues, standardization issues. So Ravi, tell me, where does the ecosystem stand as it is today? You both were telling me earlier, Siddharth, Ravi, that cars are standardized in electric charging systems, but not in the two-wheeler side.
Right.
I'd appreciate it if you tell me how the ecosystem plays today.
Yeah, this is very similar to what we were in late 90s, early 2000s. If you look at telecom, we would always talk about GSM and CDMA. We would talk about multiple standards coming in and competing for the same space. Even now, if you look at EV charging infrastructure, you will talk about GBT, CCS and CHAdeMO. Multiple standards competing for the same thing. I think this is a similar evolution if you look at from a standards point of view. But at the same time, also as an ecosystem. There is always a chicken and egg story, right? What comes first? Will the tower come first or the phone come first? That was the issue in the early 2000s. Will you invest in a phone when you don't have a tower? I can't make a call, so why should I invest? Very similar scenario now. I want to buy a car, I want to buy a bike, but is there a charging infrastructure? Vice versa, I have a charging infrastructure, now should I buy a vehicle? I think very similar parallel to what happened 2 decades back. But this is where I think the kind of regulations which come in, the private players getting involved. Even if you look at way back 20 years back, only when Airtel and other private players jumped in, let the government do its job, but then private players came in, it boomed very fast. I mean, the scaling up was very fast. We believe we are in that cusp right now, maybe a year or two away from that happening, but it started to happen. It's no longer a fancy term to say that I will own an electric vehicle. I'm quite sure all of us here have used, touched, done something with electric vehicles. It's no longer a fancy item. It's something which is real. So I think that's where we are, and this multiple standards and getting new standards, which are India-specific standards for two-wheelers, three-wheelers, are all challenges which we need to sort it out. Not yet done, a lot of work to be done, but a good beginning.
It's at least cheaper to ride an electric vehicle though. At least in the case of the phones, there were rupees 80 a minute or something back then. At least in the case of vehicles, it's cheaper. But you said that the cost of managing an infrastructure is difficult.
Yes, right now, if you notice in India, we are power surplus country.
Yes.
But there's a lot of challenges at the last mile. When you distribute the electricity, we all know the challenges we face at the last mile. Now, as this infrastructure comes out, there are issues to say, how do I get the right power? What licenses do I need to have? What documents do I need to have? That's the first step of the problem. And then the availability of power, the quality of power, all of that challenges the charging infrastructure. Installing a box is only one part of the story, but then you need to sort out all the others, and then comes the software. Because once you get everything working, how do you ensure it is self-serve? India is never used to a self-serve experience. But whenever you go to a petrol or a diesel filling, there is somebody to fill it. You never fill it yourself. But in an EV charging, you are going to do it. Nobody else is going to do it. It's all unmanned stations. So that's where software becomes important. User experience becomes important. And ability to manage that equipment remotely becomes very important.
Okay.
And that's where we jump.
Okay. Before I get into the product, and I want Naga to comment on the product a bit,
sure.
If you would have pitched to it. Quickly tell me in about 30 seconds, right? The standardizations happen in cars, why? And the standardizations don't happen in two-wheelers, why?
So I think what we have seen is, of course, a lot of four-wheelers, when we talk about them, most of the products which you see today in the market are all kind of launched by large companies which are building it for global markets. So when you're trying to do an R&D and then trying to create a product which can be sold in multiple markets, to try to adopt to some common internationally accepted standards. So I think that's where the thinking about a lot of four-wheeler OEMs is trying to stick to what is the most popular or the most easily accessible as well as adoptable standard. So they want to stick to that. But whereas I think a two-wheeler is more at a nascent stage, and we are not seeing too many international brands taking the same product, offering it in multiple markets. So I think maybe even that segment will figure out what's the most, common utilitarian standard which works best for all of them. But still, I think there might still be a few outliers, Always there's a lightning cable versus USB-C, I think. So sometimes even regulation helps, drive standardization at some point. But I think we are still at early stage for maybe first innovation, then followed by, standardization for further scale.
So in India, in the two-wheeler side, some are vertically integrated and some are open.
Yeah.
But mostly vertically integrated today, right? It's all closed loop systems. Okay. Talking about your product, you work with grids in load management, you help chargers, manage chargers, then you also help fleets or battery operated fleets, right? Was that the pitch to Naganand? Was that what won and won? Let's talk about the specification of the product, right? What wowed him? I'll ask him that. But you have to tell us that what did you do to ensure that he was wowed?
Yeah, so our vision slide, what we made probably way back in 2017, is still remained the same. We're still using the same picture to talk about what we wanted to do, and we have done exactly that. So we are one of those where we stuck to our vision. We didn't change because we understood what it needs to be. So our understanding of energy in EV ecosystem is three pieces. Somebody will give energy. Somebody has to transact the energy to give the energy to somebody, and you have to ensure this energy is consumed in the right way. So these are the three elements. Where does the energy come from? It's usually grid or renewables. How do I give energy to you? Is via a charger or a battery swap system. How do I ensure that energy is used properly? Is the battery. So that's where we kept our focus on these three elements, and we said our digital platform will ensure that these three are connected, and we will see energy value from end to end. That is, how does it come from the grid? How do we optimize it there? How do I give the energy? How do I make user experiences to do that? And for a fleet and a vehicle OEM, how do I ensure that the energy is utilized properly? So which means battery life is extended, batteries ensure it is used for a long time. We have kept that focus, and that's the same picture we have all these years.
And these are energy as a service companies.
This is energy as service companies.
Okay. That was a good pitch. Did you like it, or did you say, look, go implement it and come back?
See, two, three things were the key differentiators, right, when we heard the pitch. One is, it was very easy for us to compare and contrast what happened in networking industries, what happened in telecom industries, and where EV industry could go, right? And we had, even in the fund, we have had great experiences in the networking and the telecom industry. So it was easy for us to visualize and then extrapolate to the fact that EV industry will obviously also get to this point. The question in our own head was, when will the EV industry get to this point? Because that's a risk you take, right? Because you cannot predict when the market is going to take off. Because even after we invested in Numocity, and we are having this discussion with both Ravi and Siddharth, we didn't know when the EV industry is going to take off, because it's a very policy-oriented industry, right? Because the investments are high. But that's an unknown for us. But you got to, at some point, make a calculated decision and take a calculated risk and say, probably it will happen. In the next 2-3 years. That's a risk we had to take. Number one. And number two, obviously these guys have built systems in Nokia, right? Similar systems for a different environment, but hence the confidence that they will be able to take that and replicate it or build a system that is comparable in the EV ecosystem. That became very important. And then the third one is the drive, wanting to make a difference to build a great company from India. That we look for in every startup that we invest in, and I found it in these guys. So hence that was those are the three. I think the reasons why we kind of believe in Ravi and Siddharth and in Numocity.
Three things come to mind now. You graduated from being just techies to proper businessmen. You raised strategic investment very early. Along with Ideaspring, you had ABB on board too. You were also in a lot of these accelerators, B2B accelerators. Did that help you guys to get this strategic acquisition on the table? Because people realize the impact the product will make. How many EVs do we sell? 1 million today in India, or less than that?
Much less than that.
Much less than that, right? So talk about these three things. Did these three things make a difference? The fact that you moved from being techies to business people, did that help in both these cases, both of you? You should tell me. I know I'm playing the devil's advocate here. Who's more of a techie? I don't know in this case. You should tell me. and then working in all these B2B accelerators, did that help at all? And did ABB like that, and therefore the acquisition? And also talk about customers if you want. Don't name them. Did anybody help you?
Sure. Siddharth, you want to start?
Yeah. So I think when we started looking at the problem, so the thing is, see, as one is being an engineer, you have built things, you have done it as part of a larger company and all of that. So the thrill is like, now that you have these learnings, do you want to apply it independently, right? So it's more like having the freedom to make your own choices, but along with that cost of the freedom is taking accountability, right? So that's where I think the transformation from being just an engineer to be an entrepreneur, I think where you take ownership for the whole thing. So I think that came from more like, first is having a confidence, that believe in the idea that is, we can make it work. So for that, what is needed to make it happen, we were prepared. Of course, see, I think every time you make a guess that, okay, this problem is only this hard, but when you actually start solving, you find out it's 100 times harder. So, but then perseverance is what got us through it. Coming back to, I think, accelerators, see, I think each one has, some value add to provide. So of course, I think for us, when you compare to the typical age of founders today, yeah, we were, a lot more grey hair when we decided to start. So maybe some parts of those acceleration programs were possibly less relevant for us, but what actually, so we were part of the accelerator from Bosch, Microsoft, as well as ABB. So what each one added is, of course, helping us with industry connects. One is helping us closer access to the actual problems being solved in the industry. And third part is technology, because again, though we had ideas, we are building it now. So we worked 2 decades back, but today the technology ecosystem has also changed. So that way, getting exposure to what's currently hot and what is happening, and then applying it to a problem which you are kind of familiar with solving was what we were trying to do. But again, constantly you are having to reevaluate. Is this the right choice? Is this the right decision? And many times it's not about getting it right. That at the point of making the decision, you execute, check, measure, go back. It's a fast feedback loop. So in startups, always they say, execute fast. Even if you're failing, you fail fast, but at least you figure out what's working. What's not working, piles up into a much bigger list. So I think that helped us. So I think what ABB kind of, came on board as an early strategic investor, but they were, as Nan said, they drove the investment, so they were a small thing, but that gave them an insight into how we were operating. So, so over the period of 2 years where they were with us as a minority investor, they could observe what the company is doing. So I think, one thing which happened unplanned was the pandemic. So pandemic was, honestly a period of uncertainty. We didn't know where the company would go, where the ecosystem would go, right? So because, our success is directly linked to the growth of the ecosystem. So 1 year we were all sitting remote, quietly, nobody's traveling. So what e-mobility? There's no mobility need at all, right? So from there, when mobility needs came, of course, I think a greater awareness about having more eco-friendly transport was the first conscious thing, and I think the willingness to make it happen. I think, as Anand mentioned, policy. So we saw a strong push, not just in India, internationally. I think there's a greater awareness and acceptance that we need to take action now to solve this climate change problem. So during that time, I think ABB could see what progress we made. I think over the 2 years, the fact that we were able to quickly cycle through ideas, execute, and also I think the success. So as we also spoke today, we have more than 60 plus customers. So that's a testimony to the kind of
you remember your first client?
Yeah, very much. Yes.
Okay, we are not going to name them. Are they still with you? Do they have?
Yes, they are very much with us. So
okay.
Another thing is, Numocity was able to sign up 2 of the largest, without naming them, but 2 of the largest conglomerates in India as a customer. And it's not easy for a startup to be able to signing those kinds of customers, right? And that's a testimonial for the fact that the product is forward-looking, it is stable, it is deployable in field, and I think those are all very, very key indicators in any acquisition, right? Because you're not going to get acquired if you don't have a stable product that can be deployed in the industry, and I think we were able to prove that in the industry, and I think that played a significant role in giving the confidence even for ABB, although we were already running on all ABB's hardware, but the fact that outside of them, that we were able to crack these large customers, would have definitely had a significant impact on the thought process.
Okay, and I always ask this: did you guys make money after the acquisition? Very important, Naga. You should also help. I mean, they may feel shy, but you are. Did you make money yourself?
So we are. I'll say we're quite happy with the outcome. The fact that we invested in Jan of 2020 and we were able to exit to an international company in 2022 May. I think that's a great outcome, and we have a philosophy that we will exit when the founders make money and have a potential to make money, because we all know that deals are structured differently. Some deals with a complete buyout. For us, in this particular case, for the investors, it was a complete exit. But for the founders, they have some money, and they should tell you they're happy with that. It's not for me to comment.
You've got a 3-year roadmap now.
Yes.
Hard targets.
Yes.
Tell us some broad strokes of those hard targets. And obviously, does it feel nice to have cash in the bank finally also?
Absolutely. So as an entrepreneur, see, money is always relative. Some money is big for some, small for some. But I think we are happy with what we have got and what we were looking at. And what also gives us an opportunity is, like Naganand mentioned, our vision was, can we be a global company with a product built in India? I mean, that is what both of us had. I mean, it was not the money driving us, it was a passion to say, can we do it from here? I mean, we have the skills, we have all the ingredients, can we do it? I think that's a big validation for us, because if a world leading company is now the acquirer for the technology built here, I think that's a big validation. And next 3 to 4 years, we have a much bigger vision, much more ambitious vision to say, can we go international and actually prove that? I mean, we're already in many countries now. Can we rapidly expand and do it in several countries? So I think that's a kind of motivator to go behind. Money, of course, is a result of what happens, but I think we would love to achieve those results because we have a fantastic opportunity to do it. And we've got the first step already towards that.
So both your families are finally happy?
I'm not fully, I would say. I will ask Siddharth to answer. No, I think there is more time which we will need to spend now, going forward, more than what we spent.
Okay.
So in that way it is happy. At the same time, you also know that you are dedicating more time on the same thing.
Absolutely. Quickly tell us the market size for this, your product and the business model, and the size of the EV industry in India as well, because not many people are certain as well how big it is or how big it's going to be.
Sure. So I think when we try to put a number to it, I think it's very hard. We would get multiple estimates from different market studies, but I think the key thing is, see, it's going to be directly linked to how big the ecosystem grows. So one thing is, of course, some of the quoted numbers are saying it's going to be $100 billion opportunity in the infrastructure space. So this infrastructure is a global one. How much of it is relevant to India? Maybe 10 billion, 20 billion. But the thing is, the infrastructure doesn't get built only today. It will keep getting built. So I think over the decade, we will see a lot more investments in it. And over time, as and when more assets come, there's more opportunity to make money. But I think the key thing for Numocity is now we are possibly, at a very good position to capitalize on this growth. So we have access to market. We are part of a larger group which facilitates closer interaction with customers, access to more markets. So I think we have to really double down and ensure that all the effort is in terms of scaling the company. So I think from startup to scale up, I think that's the transition we need to focus on. So I think what we need is switching gears. That's where.
Right. Before we end the show, quick advice to people who can build for India and for the world, sitting out of Bangalore or any of the other cities. What advice would you give to people?
So, like I say, I'll only give inputs, not advice.
Yes,
advice is a very big word. Look, if you look at our exit, we had a Swiss company come by us. The deal, we didn't have any issues.
The Swiss company being ABB?
ABB.
Let's mention that.
Yeah, ABB, which is Swiss, from Switzerland, right? That deal happened from ABB, Switzerland. And we didn't have any issues whatsoever.
No regulatory
hassles, no nothing. We got the money in the bank, didn't have any issues, the money flowing in. So, that Ideaspring we started because we believe that we can build product companies in India that global companies can acquire. And it has happened, and we have heard stories before where acquisitions happened in this space, it didn't go through, it took a year, this had to happen, that had to happen. But fortunately for us, we didn't have any hurdles whatsoever in this acquisition happening, and I think 2-3 things are important. One is you should have a great product. Number 2, I think you should have your house in order, right? Because I think one thing we did very well in Numocity is we had multiple diligences happen from all over the world, from all kinds of firms, but at the end of the day, there was really nothing that anybody could point to fingers and say, oh, you have not done this. I think that's very, very important to have your books, right? And build a great company, right? So if you do that, very confident that global companies will come
out of India. Well, guide to happiness quickly, both of you. Are you guys happy? You're happy now, of course, but what is your guide to happiness in life? Ravi, start with you.
More philosophical.
Yeah, that's the most difficult question for the program.
No, it's just a matter of doing what you want to do. I think that's what keeps.
Do what you love.
What you love, I think that's what it would be. So if it's about your startup, whatever you do, keep that passion. I think that's what takes you.
Siddharth, what about you?
So I think key thing is always be prepared to learn. I think you can start with an idea. So perseverance and humility. I think that's the right cocktail. Maybe it brings you new experiences and keep an open mind. I think
And that's what makes a good team. This is Team Numocity, ladies and gentlemen. Imagine now 1 million vehicles going and charging in a city at the same time. It's going to be a lot of problems with the grid, and load management is going to become a huge problem. And that's where these guys are going to come solve it, Naga.
Absolutely.
And they're going to solve it for the world, not just for India.
Absolutely.
The Make in India product, go support them. What's your website?
www.numocity.com.
Numocity.com. Thank you so much.